Hey, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for the month of September. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to open up the floor for public discussion, and there being no one here from the public for public participation, I'll move on to item number 3, which is the discussion and approval of minutes from our August 20th meeting. I'll give you gentlemen a few minutes to kind of review the packet, review the minutes with any recommendations or changes. Any changes or adjustments to the minutes?
I've got one, Kev.
Yep. Jim?
Page 3, third bullet, the one that says Mr. Cifarelli, starts with the words Mr. Cifarelli. A couple of things. The first one in the last line, second last line, the cost was approximately, that was for 2006, 2007, I'm pretty sure. Is that everybody's memory on that?
The 30K?
Yeah. But less going forward, I distinctly remember asking the question what the ongoing costs were, and I think it was less than $1,000 a month, because I think that's what we were trying to get at, was what the ongoing costs were.
Yeah, what was the annual cost?
Yeah, that 30K, as I remember it, John, was kind of like getting up to, most of it, the way Vinny explained it, was kind of like getting up to speed on the case type of stuff, or part of it anyway.
And that's what he said, but really, he took over the year before, so I'm not, when I went back and read this and thought about what he said, I'm not sure that what he said was quite correct also. I don't know. I was a little confused.
You do recall I asked that question on the ongoing thing?
I think I did, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's one.
Okay. Any other changes, Jim?
I highlighted them. Oh, I don't know if it comes as a change, but on page 7, I just want to, I don't know exactly if this is an agenda topic or a comment. I went over Friday and sat down with, to learn more about the High Plains kitchen area.
Yeah.
Because I was concerned about John's and Kevin's concern,
yeah.
Which they expressed. And I did some research with Ed, and I've summarized that for the team tonight, if you want to.
Okay.
As best I can understand it. I put it in a chart, so I could do that as part of the Amity thing, or whatever you want to do, Kevin.
That would have to be added to the agenda if we were to discuss that, because it's not on the topic for tonight's agenda. The update summary of the High Plains. That was last month's meeting, so it wasn't on the agenda for this evening. So if someone's willing to add it later in the agenda, I can open that up to the board if they're willing.
It would probably take 2 minutes if you were.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, okay. So we will, we'll do that after the minutes. Let's finish the minutes first.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other changes to the minutes that you have?
Page 8, under number 7, the second bullet, the second last sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we want to say that we will, John's concerned about, we will lose, I think, lose taxes. Maybe take out one of the O's there.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure even lose is the correct word there. Just, I think what I was trying to convey that
probably receive,
Yale,
right?
Yeah, what I was trying to convey is I'm concerned that Yale isn't going to pay the same amount of taxes that we're receiving on that property. That's all I was trying to. I don't know if ruse is really the right.
Just change the text and verbiage on that, Deb.
And on the next bullet underneath that, I didn't quite understand the last sentence, the Economic Development Commission will attend the closing. I felt I went to, all of a sudden I was in a real estate.
Yeah, that sentence really should be, probably should be redacted or struck from the minutes, because the purpose of that meeting was not for the Economic Development Commission to transact in any type of closing activity. Basically, it was just an update by Bruce Alexander, who's head of government affairs for Yale, came in and gave an update. So there was no closing on that. So you could just take that sentence right out.
And finally, on number 9, the last bullet, I did use the words ultra-conservative, but I was quoting Dr. Brady about Jack Levine. It isn't that the Amity budget is ultra-conservative, although there may be some data out there to support that as well. But I was talking about Jack, so maybe we need to relook that. I think you could point out that he pointed out that the Amity will return an estimated, if you just kind of take out.
You leave the 209 in, but take out.
Yeah, and I get the update on that tonight as well. But
Okay.
for these minutes, I think
Yep.
ultra-conservative, the enemy budget ultra-conservative, that's not accurate.
We just
I don't
take that out, redact that as well. Okay, Jim, thank you. John, you have anything?
Yeah, a couple. I'm just starting on page 1 under the expenditures. I'm not sure we should label the Orange Board of Education intends to fully utilize their surplus. I wouldn't really consider what they have in their budget a surplus. I think it probably should say fully intends to fully utilize their budget allocation. Let's use that instead.
That's a better wording.
Yeah. And then maybe starting with Miss Mangini reported that maybe instead of balance, maybe unexpended expenditures, or I'm not sure we want to use balance there also.
Is that the correct amount, Pam, the 250? I saw a report that said 293 on the expenditure.
It's continuously being adjusted.
Okay, okay. So for the sake of this minutes, it was 250?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then on page 3, when we talk about the HIPS in case, Pam, is that correct that it still has funding to go? HIPS in case has a 3-year agreement that has been included in the.
That's correct, yes.
It just seems like that's been around forever. And then on page 6, item number 6, and 3 under that, money allocated for the project. I don't think that was 290,000. I think that was 29,000. Pam?
For the roof repair.
Yeah.
This was one of the capital items?
Yes.
Yep.
Number.
You're correct. I believe it was
29,000.
29, but I'll confirm that and let Deb know.
Yeah, we would have remembered if it was 290.
Yeah, that would have wiped out our thing there.
Yeah.
And then page 8, the third bullet down there, where Mr. Lieberman reported the lighting is relatively new. I think when I questioned him on that, he said about 10 years old when they did this lighting here. So instead of new, I would put in 10 years. New to me is less than a year. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? The only adjustment I had was on page 2, bullet number 1 under revenue, where Pam reported the town's projection of approximately 51. I think it ended up being like 50.6. It was a lot lower than 51, so make it 50.6. That's the only change.
Is that 4%?
What's that?
Is that 4%?
Well, no, what I think she was trying to do is, when Pam gave us the projection, I think she said 50.6 million, and I think you just probably rounded it up to 51 million. So I just want to make sure that for me.
What I was asking is 50.6 or 51, 4% over projection.
No, probably it would be less than that. Yeah, be like
Right.
3.3.
Yeah, it definitely is.
3%.
We'll adjust them out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again, I'll talk to Deb.
Okay, any other changes, amendments to the August 20th minutes? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to accept with the changes and adjustments as read.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Leahy. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Moffett. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the review and discussion of the 2006-2007 revenue and expenditures. As you know, these expenditures and revenues for the budget are not fully audited yet. The auditing process has just begun, and Pam will give us an update at least as where the figures lie as of the end of the month. Pam?
Okay, I did provide you with a summary report for both revenue and expenditures for 06-07. What needs to be adjusted, and it normally is not adjusted until the audit is complete, are the funds, the revenue for the funds, including OVNA, police special duty, and the park and rec self-support. The 06-07 budget had projected $408,000 in revenue for those three programs combined, and at this point, we're relatively comfortable that we will meet that projection, if not possibly exceed it. So the $309,652 figure that is at the bottom of the report as surplus revenue over the anticipated projection should be increased by approximately $400,000. So there appears as though there will be as much as $700,000 in revenue returned to the general fund. And again, this is all pending our audit. No one has any questions on the revenue side? I'll address the expenditures for 06-07. It appears, based on the summary I provided you, that there is an unexpended balance of $529,960.69. However, I did confirm with Mr. Pulo at the Board of Ed today that they have, in fact, expended their entire appropriation as we expected. Therefore, we need to remove from that figure their appropriation, which is, according to this report, again, there's been some adjustments made and some journal entries that still need to be made. And of course, it is all subject to audit, but this was printed about a week ago, and as a result, it appears as though the Board of Ed, it's approximately $300,000, and I looked at their report today, and it was like $293,000 that it showed as remaining. But regardless, there's approximately $225,000 of unexpended funds from our general operating budget that, again, look like will be returned to the general fund.
About 225, yeah?
Approximately at this point.
Okay.
And again, it's just.
And a lot of that, when
unaudited.
looking through the expenditures, a lot of that seems to be salaries, vacancies,
Exactly.
people going out on medical leave, and,
That's a significant amount of that.
that seems to be the biggest driver.
Yes.
Can we take a 30-second time out?
It's just got the
Can I just ask you one question
Sure.
on the revenue? Where did the Amity refund go and which revenue?
The
line?
Amity refund is reflected under education, or program 280, Orange Schools. You know what? That doesn't seem to be accurate,
Yeah.
but I have it here, so
Right.
hold on one moment, please. I'm sorry, it's under the treasurer's program of 036. The Amity surplus refund was $455,751. So that would be the third program down.
Page 2. Thank you.
So that revenue was not included in the overage of 600 that we talked about, right?
Correct. $700,000 anticipated
Right.
in, as an overage in your revenues, primarily as a result of the Amity refund, as well as the additional interest that
Interest
was
income.
earned
Right.
this year.
Exactly.
So Pam, I feel like I'm looking at double mint gum when I look at this
Okay.
form here. We got 2 lines for every one thing. We're at a total of, revenue is higher than budgeted for last year
Correct.
by 309,000. You stated 400 more is coming.
Correct.
The Amity number of 455 is buried in the treasurer's account?
Yes.
And so therefore, it's a major component of that
Yes.
revenue overage vis-à-vis the budget. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions on revenues for 06, 07? The expenditure side, you just summarized as well for us, basically, looking at basically, looks like underrun by about 225.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on expenditures for 06, 07?
You said 225 on the expenditure side?
Yeah, as far as the budget underrun.
And
That's an estimate on Pam's part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Compared to the 529?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta back out the Board of Ed. Board of Ed's built into that 500.
They're
You're looking at-
306.
This is going to
Yeah.
be spent.
Okay. Moving on to the item number 5, which is the review and discussion of the 07-08 revenue and expenditures. We're actually only about roughly 3 months into the budget year, but Pam, why don't you just take us through your summary sheet that you've provided here?
Sure. First, I just wanted to mention that as a follow-up to last month's meeting, I did provide you with a revised printout on the cost of the school resource officer for Amity. There was some question about
Yep.
the cost for health insurance. I brought it to the attention of the finance department for the town of Woodbridge. They took another look at it and provided us a revised, adjusted projection of the cost, and as a result, it's going to cost the town of Orange $2,633 less than I reported last month. And on the revenue side, I actually printed a report yesterday because I realized we had not yet made any of our postings for interest, and I just wanted to give you as accurate a reflection of our revenue year-to-date. And at this point, I just want to make sure I have the correct total here. The 036 program for treasurer has actually brought in interest about 18% of the projection. So at this point, we're very close to our target projection. And we are definitely going in the right direction with revenue overall. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the revenue side.
So yeah, year-to-date, we're at 46%.
Right, and many of the state payments and a lot of these payments do
Right.
not actually get received until well into the fiscal year.
Right, yep.
Pam, the one that just looks a little strange to me is the inland wetlands
What page on, John?
on the first page of the revenue report. The third from the bottom, they collected 355% more than what we budgeted. Could there be something miscoded in there?
No, actually, it is accurate, and I attempted today to get an answer because I too was surprised, but there is a receipt in there for $13,252, and I think that is in fact a permit. That was just something that is out of the ordinary. I will clarify that again. I attempted to today, but I wasn't able to, so I will get back to you on that.
Okay, anything else on the revenue side? Anybody have any questions? Okay.
And on the, I'm sorry.
Could you educate me again on these forms? I'm looking at the tax collector 035 revenue.
And
We've
you were
got,
looking at the summary report, Jim?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, mine is dated 9/13 at 1:49 PM.
correct.
Could you kind of walk me across what I'm looking at?
The first column is your original revenue, which is exactly the figure that would appear in your budget. It's our projection. Transfers, if there were any transfers in or out, would be reflected in that column. This shows 0. And then, of course, your adjusted revenue would be a result of your original revenue plus or minus the transfer column. Month-to-date net just identifies credits and debits to that program throughout the month. Year-to-date, any credits or debits year-to-date. And then your year-to-date credits. If you find, I realize some of these reports, the way they're generated, appear rather redundant in the columns and the information that's provided, and sometimes can be more confusing. In the past, I've actually done away with the month-to-date. If you notice on your backup, they normally aren't. This one appears to have it, but I can try to simplify this a little bit through the Phoenix system. But ultimately, I think the columns that we're most concerned with is the percentage of collection and the actual balance. And at this point in the tax collectors, out of the 47.6 million of projected revenue, we have collected 24.3.
Which leaves a balance of 23.2, which
Correct.
means that we've collected 51%. Am I the only one here that thinks that those are the only 4 columns that we really need to see?
The original revenue, adjusted revenue,
Well, whatever the adjusted, eventually you come back to, it's a budget, okay? I mean, and unless this is supposed to be an audit trail throughout the year of all transfers in and out of all of these accounts, I just find this just hard to look at.
why don't we, I suggest that we attempt, and again, I have to make sure the Phoenix system is going to work with me on this, but I believe I can eliminate the transfer column as well as the month-to-date net.
Yeah.
And that perhaps would help. If I do away with year-to-date debits and year-to-date credits, you won't be able to follow what you're adding and subtracting, but I can do away with both and just give you a balance. Because obviously, your adjusted revenue minus the balance is going to identify the
credits.
dollar amount that's
Well,
been
you
collected.
really do need the transfer column in there in case you do make transfers from.
The adjusted
account.
revenue will reflect that, but if it's really
Right.
your desire,
But
what
you really
do
want to
wanna
see the transfer go in there, at least the dollar amount, at least I do.
Okay.
I mean. The other thing is, on these sheets where it says original revenue, you have adjusted revenue. Should that adjusted revenue really say, instead of original budget, shouldn't it say forecast? Isn't that essentially what you're doing, or?
Not really. If you're putting a transfer in or out, that's a real
Yeah, that's this
figure.
board
That's
acting
not a
on it.
forecast.
But yeah, but I mean, the budget's going to change. Basically, so if we have a figure in there of 228, and now the adjusted revenue is 232, basically that 232 kind of supersedes what the original budget was. 232 is going to be basically where we land, so that's we're kind of, not that we're actively forecasting, but putting that number in there gives you a sense of where you're going to land in total. You know what I'm saying?
I do. To me, that forecast, the projection,
Yeah.
it's semantics. However, I have to be honest, I'm not
I'm
so
just
sure
trying to
the
think,
Phoenix
yeah.
system will do that.
No, I'm not looking for
No,
I'm not looking for you to change the column heading on it. I was just,
The other thing, if you could bear with us in the finance department for another month or two, we have someone from the Phoenix system coming on Wednesday to show us the upgraded version. I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, because we're not only one version behind, we're at least 2 versions behind, and they won't even support our system past this year because that's how antiquated it is.
Right.
And I'm hoping, the one thing, we did see a brief demonstration, and what we were all most impressed with was the fact that it appeared as though we could have a lot more flexibility with the types of reports that we were generating. And obviously, all this information is in the system. It's in, your software. You're entering it, and you should be able to retrieve it in
Right.
whatever
The way you
fashion you
want- the way
choose
you
to.
want it, right.
But this system isn't quite as flexible. So I'm hoping
Right.
the new version will be.
probably is, right.
Stay tuned. Hopefully, there'll be better, clearer reports as we go forward. We're getting there.
Pam, in the interest of clarity, when you entitle Board of Finance Summary Report this week, could we add the word, maybe expenditure, just like we have revenue over here? And is it also a limitation of the system why there's 2, I was talking earlier about double midgum, we've got 2 lines for everything, even though only 1 is used?
Yes, because what it's reflecting is, first, it picks up all of the objects within that, but instead of actually showing it, it just shows assessor. Really, if you can just train your eye to look at the bold program, that's basically what you're interested in, program 031 assessor. Again, I'll be happy to try to play with it.
Yeah, I mean, these reports are really a work in progress. I mean, they're going to take some time, so especially with the upgrade coming, I think once that comes, I
That's the
think
key.
maybe we can sit down and, you can work on it with Al, and it'll be addressed.
Frankly, we've spent
Yeah.
a lot of time already, so I'm not very
Formatting,
optimistic
right.
it's going to be able to
Right.
change it all that much.
Yeah.
But I'll continue.
Okay, good. How about on the expenditure side?
Obviously, it's very early in the fiscal year, and
Yep.
expenditures at this point, there's nothing outstanding here. I do review this every week, and you'll see a few minor deficits, and I have already requested transfer requests from departments, and most of them have already been completed.
Yeah, this report is really working out well. This report,
Right.
and I think it is. It's a good summary of the expenditures, and then you can kind of go through it, and there'll be certain line items or certain departments here that'll kind of jump off the page at you, and then you can go look into here, into the detail, to see kind of what's driving those expenditures, so.
I made a few minor changes, and I did speak to Jim, and he's given some input, and we're hoping to maybe take another look at it as time goes forward. I know Jim, you really do enjoy what Amity provides you. I think we're a little bit different of an entity, and I did take a close look at the Amity report, and I know, Kevin, for example, you had asked for this approved budget line, the very first line in the report, and I know Jim felt there were a lot of columns here, and I'm trying to, I did try to get rid of a couple of them. I did get rid of transfers, so now you have an adjusted budget here, which obviously will reflect any transfers in and out. I combined expended encumbered because, as I explained to Jim, and I think we're all on the same page with this one, whether it's encumbered or expended, as far as we're concerned, it's no longer available.
Correct.
As a balance.
Right.
So again, contact me with any further input. It is a work in progress, and I'm just hoping it makes your life a little bit easier as you're going through it.
Yeah, it definitely does with this report. I mean, this is real easy to grab onto, should be anyways.
Pam, I did notice in the expenditure report, most of the oil accounts you encumbered.
Yes.
Is that your new
Contractual,
way of
yeah.
doing that?
I actually have departments, let me back this up by saying I'm probably driving every department crazy, but I have talked to all the department heads and asked them to do as many blanket purchase orders as possible this year for realistic expenditures, those items that they know they are going to utilize, and particularly the oil. But what I was finding in other accounts is oftentimes they were making transfers from accounts when they really needed that money for something specific, and because they weren't encumbering it and weren't doing a blanket purchase order, they were kind of getting themselves into trouble as the year progressed, so I think that'll work.
While it is a work in progress, Kevin, is there any need to having the unexpended balance column as well as the variance column?
They're one and the same, so you can take one of those out.
I mean, I could see eventually that we would be over budget, so you could have unexpended balance, I guess you could say, unless it became negative, which I guess is one way of handling it.
Yeah, you'd have your variance column does the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can.
Is this in Excel, this document here? Is it just me, or again, decimal points, we're talking a $50 million budget, do we need to see them?
Not necessarily. You can round those down if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's definitely your pleasure. I was
Yeah.
just
You can take the cents
copying
out.
what you were
Yeah.
receiving.
Yeah, same thing on percentages.
Yep,
We're just
just
trying
cut
to
it
get
down
a
to one
sense
digit.
of.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the type of thing, by doing that, you basically
Sure.
gain a column right there.
Yeah, you could turn 22.17 into 22.2. Format it to one decimal.
It's fine with me. It's that much less typing.
And eventually what will happen is the left-hand column that you see there for the 06-07 approved budget, once the audit is complete and the actuals are final, then you can actually put the 06-07 actuals in there.
Correct.
Over the approved budget. So this way here you can get a sense of what the last year's actuals were versus this year's budget, and then you can see, kind of how we're trending on that curve too as well, expenditure curve.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I kind of feel sorry for Pam on this, but she has to do it all by hand. Maybe when you get that Phoenix upgraded, it'll have I know some of the programs have like a blue button they call it, and you can download it right into Excel.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's some reports in this program that you're supposed to be able to do that.
Import,
For the life of
export,
us,
yeah.
it's, Al and I both have been struggling, and he's really very proficient in Excel, and it just does not transfer over neatly. So it's definitely going to be easier as we go forward, but I didn't want you to wait any longer for this, so.
Believe me, I feel for you. I don't want it to be downloaded, be hand typing all this in the way you're doing.
What it does do, however, is you really do catch anything that doesn't seem right on your regular report as far as deficits or accounts that are running in deficit. So it's okay. It's worked out.
And you're meeting with them this week?
Yes, but the wheels of government turn very slowly, so I don't know how quickly we'll actually proceed with the upgrade. Of course, we'd have to go through the purchasing procedures and processes, but I'm hoping maybe if things go smoothly, by the first of the year.
Oh, yeah, because if we have a system that's no longer supported.
We have until June for lack of support, so we're not that close, but we're getting there.
Okay, any more questions on expenditures for 07-08? None? Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is review discussion, and I'm going to put off possible approval of a conceptual 3-year budget plan. Basically, what we're looking to do here is within the next few months, maybe in next month's meeting, we can actually get into a little bit more deeper discussion and have a presentation on kind of what I'm looking for out of our budget planning process for the upcoming budget cycle. Not just budgeting for 1 year, but to do a kind of a 3-year budget plan. And basically, that's going to mean a lot more work for Pam and for Al, because basically, in order to do that, you need to base your 3-year plan on pretty realistic assumptions on the expenditure side and the revenue side. On the expenditure side, you're going to want to account for inflation on certain kind of expenditures, outside services, contractual services, all that. And then the rest of it would kind of be, a lot of it would be salary driven as well, trying to forecast, what salaries would be. Now, obviously, from a contractual negotiating standpoint, you're not going to know what that is, but at least by putting together a 3-year budget plan, you can also ask the department heads to kind of give, our first selectman and the board of selectmen kind of a ability to see what their 3-year initiatives are and what they're looking to do, and make sure that those initiatives are consistent with what the first selectman is looking to do as far as driving revenue growth for the town and reducing expenditures for the town. So from that standpoint, I think, there's a lot of corporations and companies, and even the state of Connecticut does a 3-year plan. I think it would be wise for us to also adopt that same concept going forward. So basically what we would do is, once we locked in the budget plan for 08, 09, once that's done, we would then just basically, go over the assumptions for what would be the plans for 09 and 010 and 010 and 11, kind of extrapolate the budget plan out. It means a little bit more work at the end, but I think, if we put all our ducks in a row, we can easily do it. Any thoughts? That's why I wanted to bring it up tonight, as part of just basically discuss it, digest it, think about it over the course of the next month or so, and give me your thoughts.
The only thing I'd like to see capital included in that.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember, I think when you took over, Kevin, at one meeting, you handed out sheets that you wanted the departments to fill out. I think it was either a 5 or 10-year capital plan. I think with the change of director of finances, that kind of fell apart. And I think we need that. I think when we look at the department budgets in the spring all the time, instead of just relying on this capital committee, we should hear a presentation from the departments too on what they need, or what they're requesting, or what they're not getting, and then we make a more informed decision instead of being presented with 10 items, basically take it or leave it type of thing. I'd like to see what is really out there and what all the departments are really asking for.
Right. Yeah, basically when, Kevin's our representative on that board, but basically that board has a pretty tough job, because they get basically like 50 projects that department heads want to do, but we can only do, 8 of them. And Ralph's team and Ralph's board, Ralph Okenquist, basically has the job of prioritizing those based on the input from the ad hoc committee board and also department heads. But the thing is, we need to really prioritize the projects, do the first ones in year 1, and then they need to take the next set of projects, do them in year 2, and the next set in year 3. So they really, instead of presenting 8 projects next time around, they're probably going to be presenting more in the order of like 20 projects, but they'll be spaced out over the 3-year period, based on prioritization from Ralph's, the ad hoc planning committee board, and also the department heads.
We have things out for the next 5 years.
Right.
And so
you guys already kind of do that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, but that definitely would be part of the process as well. Absolutely. Jim?
Kev, I don't know if this is part of a conceptual 3-year budget plan in towns, but what I liked about what the police did this year when they came is they kind of did a mini best practices of comparing themselves to other like functions in a number of other towns. I wish we could have similar types of analyses presented with the budget request for money that is not on Pam or Al's docket, but because I think it would be helpful. I think it would be helpful to see reality, and if that reality helps their people's cases for their particular function, fine. And if it gives them an eye-opener as to what others are doing, it gives them an opportunity to, in our world, a best practice may be out there that we're unaware of. So I can think it could only benefit the town, but I don't know if it comes specifically under a 3-year budget plan, unless what that means is we're going to be stating here's the responsibilities of each department head, and part of that responsibility is to give expectation of expenditures over a 3-year period, expectation of capital need over a 3-year period. And oh, by the way, perhaps the first year will be rudimentary, but some sense of how you compare your function, and most towns have the same functions we have, by like towns. I think that would be very useful for the population, for us as well.
Yeah, I think it would be particularly helpful with some of the larger departments. I mean, last year I was approached by the chief and the police department to kind of give them some guidance on what they should do, and that's one of the things I suggested that they do, is to kind of do a comparative analysis between police departments in Orange versus other towns. I mean, that's the way we do it in the business world. If you're going for budget dollars, you need to get the data and be able to compare yourself in order to justify what the dollars you're looking for. I think that would be very helpful for the bigger departments. I'm not sure with every department in town if that would be useful, because there are some small budgets in here.
Oh, no, I'm not looking.
But the major ones, definitely, yeah. I think, because they did a great job with their budget presentation last year. They did an excellent job.
Yeah, and one way of, as a, for example, to a department head is just hand them the one the police did and say, no one gave them a real script.
Yeah.
And some of us, for us, it's easy for us to say, well, what do? You have so much square footage, you have so many staff, you have, so what are the hours? I mean, there's some basic stuff you can compare, depending upon the particular situation you're talking about, the department you're talking about.
And the real reason behind this is, if you think of it, is the important factor is to get the 09-08 budget right.
Mm-hmm.
The 08-09, I should say. That's your first year budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this board is not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire because they put together a 3-year plan and year 2, their projections are off. I mean, things change within the municipal world, the corporate world, so the numbers obviously may change. But the reason why we plan for year 2 and year 3 is because if we roll up a year 2 plan or a year 3 plan, we see that expenditures roll up to 6%, and then we see that our revenue projections are only coming in at 4, that we know that we have a disconnect here, and we have to plan accordingly to make sure that the year 2 and year 3 budgets that come in are commensurate to the revenues on a growth basis, percentage growth basis. So that's really the reason for doing this, is to kind of project what our revenues are going to be, what our revenues coming in from the state on interest income, that type of thing, so that we can kind of put our expenditure plan together based on that.
So what do we need to do to make this happen?
Well, what we need to do is I need to put some stuff together for next month's meeting in order to kind of give you guys a flavor and a layout of what the 3-year plan would look like. And then what we would need to do as a board to kind of help Pam and help Al kind of put it all together. So,
Okay.
but that's for another meeting. But I just wanted to get kind of your buy-in as far as, your thoughts on it.
But we had asked years ago, for 5-year plans, which some departments did do, but I think Jim's point, if we could use what the police did as a model for the larger departments, because that's got more valuable information than somebody just taking this and adding 3% for 5 years and
Right.
what we were looking for.
Right.
The police,
Could've done that.
years ago, they've always been good and tried to project out when they were going to be needing to add officers and things. That's the
Right.
kind of information
That's
we
useful.
need.
Right.
And the Board of Ed, if they, if they are projecting larger class sizes, and, that's when it comes
For
to...
education, it's key. Because
Bodies
it's all
on those,
based on
so-
class size. Right.
So,
And the Board of Ed, we would ask the Board of Ed to do this as well. Like Kevin says, it's a very important point because, if we get a budget and we're looking at it and we see 3%, 3%, 3%, we're going to ask the question, say, hey, you guys really didn't put too much time and effort into this. You just laid it across. I mean, give us a feel for certain areas within your department that are going to grow higher than others.
Where that's, it's going to be helpful too, is like someone like Park and Rec,
Mhm.
or the town engineering department or Public Works.
Yes.
They can give us an idea on their capital, their trucks. I mean, they should get into a rotation of their
Absolutely.
equipment.
Retiring old and
Yeah,
brand new. Right.
exactly, so we don't, all of a sudden, they don't need 5 trucks in 1 year, even though they should put some planned obsolescence into this, and
Right.
that would help.
And along that line also, with any of these, the capital projects, with some Wolf Park additional fields or whatnot, that's not the real cost. It's, are they gonna need more people to and that's, I remember Dave, who sat here before, that was one of the arguments on the ice rink. And, the cost of the ice rink wasn't just the cost of the ice rink, as it turned out. So,
Right.
those things, and we build in, and, you at least have all the information when we vote on it.
And it'll be helpful for the Board of Ed because they can plan by, classroom size, and they have projections on pupil enrollment for, I think, the next, at least like 5 to 10 years, I think they have. So it'll be helpful for them as well. They probably, in a sense, already kind of do it on a small scale, so.
Sounds good.
Go ahead, Pam. Yeah.
Just add, first of all, you're absolutely right. I mean, I came from a Board of Education, and all that information is readily available. And I think that's the case with most departments. I know the Park and Rec Director is part of the Connecticut Parks and Recreation Association, and there's a lot of that type of networking, and they can easily obtain the information that will make it not only easier for the board to make some informed decisions, but I think it'll be very informative for the departments themselves, not only the 3-year, but just doing what the police presented, which I too thought was a wonderful grouping of information and a great analysis. And even community services attempted to present a little additional information, if I recall. I do have a department head meeting next week, I believe, and it might be a good idea if I
Put it under radar.
take a look at Chief Gagne's analysis and what he presented, and maybe guide them a little bit on what you're looking for. And yeah, definitely give them a heads up, and they can start compiling some of this information. And I just think it will serve, obviously, the board very well, but also ultimately the taxpayers, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here, trying to do as much as we can with, you know, the dollars we have. So. And
then this way here, when they come forward in January for their budget reviews, they'll have this year's laid out and then the next 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and it'll be easy for us to go, you know, through the budgets like we normally do and ask questions mainly about the current year, but also the out years as well.
Sounds like a plan.
Rich.
We got a little feedback there. Okay. In terms of looking at the better? No? Yes?
Hang on 1 minute. Try now.
Maybe that's fine. Okay, how's that? Okay. In terms of working on the 3-year budget review, and I think it's a great idea, but I would hate to see, and clearly this is going to be happening past my tenure, I have 1 meeting left, but one comment I would have to say is we as a board going forward don't want to get tied down in the minutia. I mean, when it comes right down to it, the real drivers of our budget are education. I mean,
right.
There's 2 real numbers to look at. I mean, you take a look at what you think the Amity number is going to be and what the Orange Board of Education number is. Yeah. The rest of the budget in total, whether it goes up 2% or 4%, that impact on the rest of the budget is not that big
right.
to warrant any big concern. So in terms of driving our expenditures, you know, what are we looking at in terms of pupil enrollment, and what do we foresee from Amity and from Orange, the cost per pupil down the road?
Right.
Are there any new mandates being fed to them by the state or the federal government? What is going to be different 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road from today? In terms of building expansions and bonding, I think we're, with what has been accomplished at Amity over the past 2 years and what has been accomplished in Orange, for the next 5 years, it would appear that we're in good shape and we don't have to worry about that. So in terms of some of the wild cards out there that could come and hit us, we seem to be in a very good place. The other half of our equation, of course, is the revenue side, and where's our revenue coming from? It's coming from property taxes. And with the shift in terms of the what has just occurred with our revaluation, we were very concerned with how it was impacting the residences more than the commercial and businesses. And so it's, you know, the only real change going forward is the next time there's a revaluation. Otherwise, we should be pretty steady in terms of where we are in terms of that balance relative to the residential property taxes and the commercial and the business taxes. So short of there being any major development in town to impact the revenue side, it would seem a pretty steady course to maybe think where we are going to be on the revenue side. It would be somewhat constant. The big wild card now be out of our control is what might happen on the national level in terms of the economy. Might there be a recession? Might the housing crisis affect Orange? I'd like to think not significantly, and so therefore maybe that is entered into the equation, but maybe it's not something that really needs a lot of
attention,
a lot of thought, a lot of detail. But the big drivers, of course, are on the expenditure side of education. On the revenue side, we've done a revaluation. Now going out, we did a bond, our bonding back when I was on the Board of Selectmen, and we used some of that money recently for the UN Farm purchase. But what type of bonding might we be looking at 4 or 5 years out? What type of level would the prudent fiscal bond people think we should have our fund balance at? Is the fund balance something that should enter into this equation? If it's, sake of argument, if it's 12% at the end of the 06-07 budget year, at the end of the 09-10 budget year, might it make more sense for that to be at 9%? And maybe that comes into the equation somewhere. Maybe there's bonding in there. So in terms of the long-term budgeting, I mean, it's almost like, why look at the Park and Rec budget? Why, I mean, and I'm not trying to make light of what the Park and Rec does, but in terms of how that impacts our budget over 3 years,
Right.
I would suggest don't even look at it.
No,
I mean,
I
look at the drivers that drive this budget.
Exactly, right. And I do agree with you. When I say 3-year capital plan, obviously I'm not going to ask for the probate court and the assessor to kind of give me a 3-year look, but it's more important to get the 3-year look from Amity, the Board of Ed, the Police Department, Public Works, obviously, kind of the big departments is really what I'm looking to drive here. And on the revenue side, as you said, from property tax standpoint and interest income, I mean, we've been riding a wave now for interest income for some time now. I mean, at some point, that wave needs to come down a little bit. And I kind of want to stay ahead of the curve on that, if possible. That's one of the reasons for doing this as well, because we've been riding a pretty good tide for the past couple of years. I don't know how much longer we can ride it. But no, that's an excellent point. I mean, obviously, we want to focus on the key drivers within your budget, and obviously education, being 66% of our total budget, is obviously 2/3 and definitely a key driver. So that's where it would be very important to kind of lay that 3-year plan out. Anybody else?
So we will be asking people.
Well, what I'd like to do
About
first, I'd
the,
first like to put
benchmarking.
something together for like our next meeting within October with Pam, and then she's going to mention it to the department heads.
If I could, just a clarification, I was thinking in terms of what the chief provided as an analysis to support his budget recommendation as something you wanted from the departments, particularly the larger departments.
Correct.
For their 08-09.
Correct, that's
And then
right.
the 3-year capital, I mean, the
Right.
3-year.
I mean, you meet monthly with the department heads,
budget
right?
is different,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So she could share or give everybody a copy of the police analysis.
right,
Right.
exactly.
I'm almost even less worried about the justification for what turned out to be an increase in some of the more significant line items. I think it was a couple of FTEs, a position at the lieutenant's level, and then 1 or 2 new patrol people. But it was the analysis, and that's where I think, from a macro point of view, Richie, I agree with you, but you know, I think you go around, you hear so many people, you know.
It was a great justification.
You guys are doing a great job, but geez, taxes are so high, man, you know. So for me, it's like any other location where I've worked. If people know that every dollar being spent is being spent wisely, they have a way different feeling towards the bills that they get. And the opposite is also true. And so there's a certain balance on the macro side, I agree, but on the micro side, you can learn a lot and save a few dollars here and there. And it's kind of like you find a little jewels, and after all of a sudden you got a nice little piece of jewelry. And things do add up, so I'd like to see us attack it from both.
And I do agree. I don't necessarily, and believe me, being on the Board of Ed, and Rich, you can definitely appreciate this, called micromanagers on more occasions than I care to recall, but I do believe that presenting a really solid analysis, such as the police department did, just simply gives you more information to make informed decisions. And you are making a lot of difficult decisions. You have department heads coming to you, as they did last year, with wanting additional employees, and obviously you could not accommodate all those requests, and it helps you to prioritize. So I personally don't see any problem with the department heads. And again, we're talking the larger departments. I don't think it would be necessary for the assessor's office unless they suddenly had a strong desire to add 2 employees. Then I would strongly suggest they come up with some solid justification for that. So I think we'll be able to address this at our meeting next week and get the point across.
Perfect. Good point. Okay. All right.
I'm going to cut it off. Then at this point, I'll make a motion to add Mr. Leahy's discussion on the High Plains Community Center kitchen to the agenda.
Okay, that will be item number 8 after the Amity update.
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Moffett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Jim. Amity update.
Yeah.
I'll pull it down for you.
I don't know if I like this trade. I invest 3 hours so that it would take me 15 minutes to explain this to you guys.
3 hours for 3 minutes? Okay.
So,
We'll cut it to 10.
Sounds like
I think we're going to run out to be one short here.
You're not plugged in, your computer's not plugged into...
Oh, I'm sorry. Talk about best practices. Here's one right here. Plug thing in before meeting starts. Thank you.
Thank you for doing it. I was going to remind you guys, but I didn't have to.
Yeah.
So the adding
Is it F8 or F9?
Where's my hour left?
Okay, team. Thank you. All right. Got out my trusty thing I use all day. Okay. So it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. Here's the structure of tonight. Again, it's for you and it's for people whom I don't get Ogat, but I think it's very important to understand, and I think what I can see is a significant value of what started out as, because of the problem we had at Amity a number of years back, what we do there and why we do it. So that's that. I'll just throw that out there. Secondly, I want to give you an update on last year, our fiscal year 2006-2007. Hasn't been audited, and the expected surplus, that shouldn't come as a surprise. I had asked for a while and did receive what I'll call a planned management's actions taken over the last fiscal year, a list of them. I want to share that with you. The resulting Amity budgets and surplus, both from this year and from an overview of the last, it may not be 2001, probably 2002. And then there was a short-term borrowing issue you may have heard something about. I wanted to give you an overview and people in town an overview of that, and that came up at the last meeting. So we'll just dive into this. Again, who is the Amity Finance Committee? It's a combination of 3 people from the Amity Board of Education and members, 1 each from the 3-member towns. I'm the representative from here, and Jill Ferriolo from Orange is doing a wonderful job as chairperson of this committee. Ex officio is Jack and Dr. Brady. Our roles and responsibilities, R&Rs, in my line of work, page 4, is to supervise the development and monitoring of the budget. Anything having to do with fiscal policy or even just remotely having to do with money seems to come before us, even if it doesn't really have to. They have to come on requested budget changes. It's kind of like that under 3,000 PM, over 3,000 kind of thing. And we look at the stuff monthly, as I think I've shown you before, and then as you go forward, you review and discuss the superintendent's budget for the following year. So for next year, it'll be 2008, 2009. I haven't changed the slide since last year. So that's who the Amity Finance Committee is. Second item on the agenda then is to the Amity Financial Status 2006. This is a little bit adjusted, but it's similar to what I've shown you in the past. And again, this is what I call an income statement view of the world. But all the numbers are the exact same numbers that Jack Brady and Dr. Brady and Jack Levine gave out. What you're going to find is that for this year, as of now, there is a balance in a positive direction of $466,000. That is a combination of a favorable $170,756 on the revenue side, and you can look at all of the details. There's your original budget for each of the components of revenue. We get forecasts by month that Jack gives out. There's a change from the prior month forecast, as you've seen before, to the June forecast, and then the over and under variance back to the original budget. So take one line item of the revenue. We were budgeted at 221. It came up to 327 by the end of the year, so we had 106,000 in the favorable, and that's why it's called FAV over here. I mean, for those who do this for a living, it's an obvious thing. For some of the people maybe watching, it may be not so obvious, but it is very, once you get used to it, it's very, very, very understood.
Hey, Jim, the capital reserve, 75,000, what did they end up spending that on?
Where, what number, line number?
Just looking down at the bottom right here, over here, capital reserve of 74.5, down in the lower left. See what it says here? Note.
I could look that up for you, Kevin. I think well, I don't know if we've covered it here or over there. We've covered it a lot.
Yep.
I could look it up for you, and we could get that data.
Okay.
So if I could take that as a next step. Yep. But what you see here, that's this 763.
Right.
This was an account that didn't exist at the beginning of the year, okay? And that these three items make that up. Okay, now I do have a note from Jack on that. I got all the files in my computer. We could look it up either now or actively, and I don't mind doing it after we go through the presentation or after the meeting, whatever you wish.
Tomorrow's fine. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe what I should be doing is sending all these files to you guys, because what I get them now is electronically in advance of the Amity Finance Committee meeting, as well as the paper copies, so I can kind of keep them.
Might want to be careful. You might blow Richie's network up over at Spectrum. I don't know if
Rich! Okay, so
his network can handle these problems.
So we were favorable on the revenue, 170 grand. We were favorable on the expenditures. That means we spent less than what we had budgeted by 295. So in overall, we therefore are favorable by 466. And these are the types of sheets that we get on a monthly basis, okay?
Jim, just
Sure.
one quick question, go back there. On that very unfavorable amount of supplies, do you know offhand what that is? 328, yeah.
What we can do, John, is go to the next line, and you're going to see detail. This is like on the next sheets. You're going to see, for example, on the next sheet, you're going to see now this is a blow up of all the revenue. Okay, so what we have here is 5 lines of revenue. The next page is 5 categories of revenue. Okay, you still get the same numbers, but it blows it down one level. Now we also have the what's the system called again, Pam?
Yeah, the Munis.
Munis system. We still have our 40 to 50 page Munis system beauty, all right, but we don't work off that. But we always know we can go back to it if we need to. All right, so we will, when we get to that, let's take a peek, John, going back now. We're going to take a peek when we get to the expenditures. We're going to take a peek on which one, I don't even remember which one.
328 right here.
The 328 over here on supplies. Okay, all good. Let's take first on revenue. Don't have to spend a lot of time, but just to make sure you guys can read it, so we can try to have more, discussion in meetings and there without. All right, obviously there's not going to be any difficulty in getting the revenue from the towns, and now you have the breakout of the other revenue, the breakout of the other state grants, the breakout of the miscellaneous, and the breakout of the building renovation grants, okay? And then where they travel during the year, where the final forecast is over here on column 4, and the difference between column 4 and column 1 turns out to be your variance. Okay, and we look at this monthly, and accompanying this monthly is a Word document that Jack has started this year, and each month we get, what we really focus on, of course, is what has changed from the prior month, so we're really looking at column 3. And so anything that changed in column 3 should have in any Word document an explanation as to why that changed. If it's $100 or something, probably not, but it certainly should be mentioned. So there isn't that much more to see on the revenue side. The expenditure side takes 2 pages. I don't think this has the one you asked about, John, so it must be on the next page. But again, so that everyone can see what it is, there's classified and certified salaries that make up 19.8 million of that Amity budget. It ultimately came in at 19.557. You can see there was 170,000 on the certified salaries favorable and 73,000 on the classified salaries favorable, so almost $250,000 favorable on the salary side. And then there's just a whole host of other categories. Rich, to your point about check out the big ones. One of the big ones, of course, was Century Preferred, and that came in significantly lower. There's going to be another panel on that in a minute, but that was a major, that almost covers the entire benefit right there. So some things are unfavorable, some things are favorable, and you add them all up, and that's what the math says, okay? Under purchase services, again, you can see significant, a couple of major hitters here in communication, in tuition expense, and also another major hitter in pupil transportation. And again, the backup details for all of this is available. We go through this month by month. A lot of that had to do with special ed, is my memory.
Is pupil transportation, was that like a new contract that they got that was lower than what they had projected? That's pretty big savings.
It is a big savings, Kevin, and we do have in that Word document, as things get added every month, what we've decided to do as standard work is every month document what was there. And so then what I had Jack do was when he puts in the new month, I couldn't tell what was new, so I asked him to bold it. So every new month when we have a Word document, he bolds what's new. And therefore, I can just read it, and it's right there, I see it, and I ask my questions, and I'm out of there. Ask another one in there or something. So, going to the next slide, and this is the one you wanted to ask, John. Here is that 328,000 unfavorable. So we can see we're budgeted for 2,938,000, almost 2,940,000, and now we look for how come. And we can see unfavorables in utilities. We can see unfavorables in repair, maintenance, and cleaning. Utilities, I think I can understand that off the top. I'd probably have to go back and check myself on repairs, maintenance, and cleaning. And there's another one here in textbooks. Okay, now textbooks happens, I know we had a supplemental budget we increased during the middle of the year. Okay, and I think it was a significant amount. But again, whether that's from this line item or some other one, I'd have to check. But I'm pretty sure. I know we boosted it up because they felt they really needed it. So if you look at the big numbers here, there's some pluses, there's some minuses. Here's a favorable in the oil used for heating, etc. And again, we'd have to get into the details. But you can see we've got 3 over 100,000 that are unfavorable, and that drove most of what was going on there. And again, we could get into the details, but that's how we review it every week. In any event, that leads, when you add it all up from the original budget to how much was spent, again unaudited, but they're obviously going to be very close. You have 295,464. Okay, and that's on the expenditure side, and that's favorable. Now, what it means to us is this: it means that we, and this is all of us in Orange, pay taxes, is we're going to get back a little under $210,000. All right, if that number remains at 466. Okay. So I think that's the significance of it. All right, that's the significance of it. And we have funded, as you can see, a lot of things for the future that were not in the original budget, because we made those decisions because people came with arguments during the year and said, we've got a good argument, we voted it, and almost all the times it was nearly always unanimous. Okay, the third item, plan management actions. Okay, well, I had heard things during various meetings, and the whole concept of doing more with less, and no one likes to pay taxes, but if it's going to a good cause, each dollar is being well spent. So I was real happy to be able to get, and this comes out of a memo written by Jack Levine on August 6th, Evaluation of Budgeting and Forecasting. And these were the highest hitter ones that were listed there, and I just want to briefly go through them. Better cash management. They implemented a new cash management system that moved available funds quicker into higher yielding accounts. 15 grand, maybe not a lot, well, if you're looking at a large budget, $40 million budget, but those 15s add up. Custodial services, they have a new custodial service program. One of the things we decided to do was buy new equipment because they felt that with the new equipment they could get more productivity and therefore didn't need to fill a custodial position. All right, it seemed to be a good trade. That was the net benefit overall. I remember in the middle of the winter, I think it was, we had insurance consultants come in, and I remember hearing that the cost of it went from A to B, and it seemed to be a pretty significant drop, and it turned out to be $180,000. And so the management, Dr. Brady, Jack Levine, the Board of Education, the Amity Finance Committee, whomever, they've hired insurance consultants who negotiated rate reductions. And so that saved $180,000 off of the budget. We got lower health savings accounts. This was a negotiated thing into the new teacher contract. They have lower cost health savings accounts, and a lot of people are signing up for them. And this saved from the budget $51,000. Not sure what to say about Munis there, Pam, but they renegotiated that, and at least for them, the new terms were lowered by 24%. So I don't know, I assume it had some capability increase as well, but compared to the budget, they saved another 15 grand. Special education legal, they separated and hired a specialized legal firm to handle special ed matters and had their other firm concentrate on their negotiations and other regular matters. And through it all, they came out of it saving almost $48,000 on their budget on special ed legal. And finally, well, I call special ed legal, it actually was just the overall legal budget. And finally, they purchased a new phone system that is just getting great reviews over in the high school, and they purchased it rather than leased it, and the amount of savings was that amount. I don't know that many details of that. My point on all this is I listen all year, and I wish all of you were there all the times that I was there. And I feel that we are working very, very hard, the leadership is, in that they take very planned actions and always look to do more with less, always look to save money. Now, when you go back and you see this number, 466, and now you see the number, 389, you're starting to see a little cause and effect here, all right? That the management of Amity are taking actions that are saving our taxpayers money. I mean, there's no doubt about it. All right, so I just wanted to get that out there and share it with all of you and with the people in the town, because that's what I've seen. Fourth item, the budgets and surplus overview. This is a picture of data of the total number returned to the town. All of the towns, that's the middle column. As you can see, since 2002, those fiscal years up through, but not including, I got this year here. I should have, by the way, this is an error over here on my part, I apologize. I was trying to say, okay, this is 2002, 2006. What I did is I copied and pasted it here, Kevin. I didn't change the last digit. I don't get the A. But in any event, $3 million, not counting this year, has been returned to the towns. Orange has benefited from this to the tune of $1.4 million. That's data, that's fact. And it'll be up to 1.6 if assuming that we get the 209,000 that looks like we're forecasted to at this point in time. The next page is just a picture of that. It's the same data, but if you wanted to visualize it, you could look at it that way. And I put a little checker mark over here because this one it's preliminary. Okay, so that's what we've got. Finally, short-term borrowing issue. You may have heard about this. There's a need for Amity to go out and borrow money. All right? Why is there a need for Amity to go out and borrow money? I heard this down the story. Hey, did you hear that? Well, here's why. The state of Connecticut is not providing money as they were scheduled to do so. I don't know, Kevin or John, whether you're more up on this than I am, but there's something been in the paper, Pam, maybe you know more and could chime in, called they've been delaying the bond bill. All right, so the money we were expected from the state to pay all the people that came to build the school, all those subcontractors and all, we have to pay them. So in order to do that, since we do not have the money from the state, we need to borrow a little over $2.5 million. It's a 90-day note, pretty low rate, but net, it's going to cost Amity $34,000. Now, I myself am not happy when we work hard you know, to get those kind of reductions, and somehow, and I'm not going to get into who's doing what up in the State House, but the fact is, all right, that Amity now needs to, and they're not the only one, but Amity needs to borrow, and it's going to cost us $34,000, $24,000 in interest, which is not reimbursable, and that shouldn't say $10, it should take $10K cost to redo the note. That is reimbursable, but I wanted to report out to this group that this is what I know, and this issue is solely about state funding. There is no problem in the construction, the funding, or the management of this project, as far as I know, and I wanted to make sure that was stated here, and so that others could know about it too. And the data source is up on the right. There is another memo Jack wrote to Dr. Brady that we get copies of course, and then the Amity Finance Committee meeting discussion last Monday night. So that's my Amity report. I'd be happy to answer any questions or follow up with anyone on any details that you wish.
Any questions from the board on the Amity update? No? Okay, Jim, good report.
How they doing the 15 minutes? That's what I want to know.
16, very good.
It was that error that cost. Now, if we go to the next item?
Yeah, item number 8, which is
Okay.
now the update on the High Plains Kitchen.
High Plains, okay. I went over to Friday afternoon. I called Ed Friday morning, and I went over and I met him over in the kitchen. All right, and what we have here is...
You put this together, correct?
I put this together based on this, as I'm taking notes with Ed, okay? So it's my rendition. It's just a typical type of thing I do at work, okay? So it's, other than it takes me a little while to do it, it really is no great shakes, okay? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, as I would say at work, everything happens through activity over time. It's the only way progress gets made. So, let's take a peek at where we are, where we'd like to go, and I asked Ed, tell me about the kitchen. So maybe I would feel more comfortable looking at my scribbles. But basically he said, yeah, he showed me all the equipment. So I firsthand looked, John, at the equipment, and that he's going to get a bid by the end of the month, and he needs to go to the Board of Selectmen. That's the next item there, gain approval, okay, and that's why I decided to put the Board of Selectmen meetings, and I hope I got our meetings right, at the 10th of October. And then I said, oh, so you can install it right away. He says, well, it depends. I said, what does it depend on? You told me you take this stuff out, it doesn't work, you got new stuff, you bought it, you put it in. He says, well, it depends on, I have to talk to Carol Nardini. Now, there's a reason why it's not had anything to do with Carol. I like Carol, all right? But then I said, okay, tell me about the windows. The guy said something about the windows at the meeting, didn't he? And that's when he said, yes. I have an architect who's doing the design of the windows. I'll have that done by the end of the month. Then I have to go out and get a bid. That's when I found out that there was money out there called LoSiP. John, you familiar with this?
That's what he said.
Okay. Okay. That it's 100% funded. Okay. And then you need to select one of those and gain approval from the Board of Selectmen, the BOS. So I lined it up with the BOS meeting. But we have a problem here, Houston. Ed's on vacation that week. So then I said, well, then I said, but he was showing me that, and I really enjoyed it. He was taking the time, and there was another gentleman, John Van really, salt of the earth, good guy. Well, he was almost like, let's get him, and we'll, yeah. He really is. So the reason I put install over this thing, it's kind of like at work. If we wait till here to install them, before you know it, someone's going to say, well, it's the end of the year Christmas party, and the chili runs the first week of January, right? We're going to run the chili run, and then, oh my God, it's too cold to put windows in. And so I'm saying, well, wouldn't it be great if we could move them back here? Because it isn't going to take very long to put these windows in. Okay, all right, that's it. Then I said, well, what about the lighting here, Eddie? What about the lighting? He said, well, we got to do a UI assessment to make a recommendation on lights. That's my abbreviation of recommendation when I run up against the right-hand side here, at least this time. Okay, and he said they don't need to do a bid. Just go to Electrical Supply House to get this lights that we need, okay? And in fact, there was a big discussion. I didn't run out of paper, so I was using this.
Was 3:30
We need
morning.
to do, this is when John came in. He says, yeah, it's great to use these, what he called ballast lights. Are you guys familiar?
Ballast, yeah.
Yeah, they're 19
GE
bucks.
ballast, yeah.
They're 19 bucks a piece. We have to use about 4 times as many as the other. I said, all I know is that there's a cost of a light, and there's an operating cost of a light, and there's how many you do, and this is the analysis you'll do. I'll calculate it for you, and but get the data. So anyway, but it just seemed, now this seemed like, wait a minute, why do we have to wait on UI? Oh, I called the guy and he says, oh, I'll wait until the equipment's in. Well, I'm in the room. I'm saying, well, what's going to be different in the room when the equipment's in? I said, well, can't we get a boost here at UI and say, get this guy out here? And because my sense of it is this, if the lighting just needs some kind of lights, John Van Arman, he's ready to put them in now. And all of a sudden, maybe we have to wait for Carol to give her blessing, but I just say to myself, it just seems like all this stuff could be done before Thanksgiving. And all I was trying to do, particularly for Kevin and John, is when you asked the question specifically about the windows and the lighting, I'm not a handy guy around the house, let alone in this field, but it's got to be something over a timeline, and I was trying to get a sense of it, okay?
You see, what you're looking at, what Kevin and I were trying to say is, in construction, you do things according to a schedule and all. In your schedule, your equipment in there would be the last thing you put in after you do the windows and the air conditioning and the lights and whatever else needs to be done. You don't put that equipment in first and then work around it. And that's what your timeline seems to be showing again.
Well,
That's why I said Ed put it together, right?
if there was a lot of AC work to be done in that room, I don't know that there is.
I don't either.
Okay.
I don't either.
The windows did not seem to be something, as he was showing me and John was kind of showing me, and I got a sense. So how would you put them in? And all I was looking for was whether they're outside, inside, or whether anything else would get in the way. And I could see that that wasn't the case. The lighting, it was almost like an afterthought. Oh yeah, maybe we ought to. And that's when we got off on the, hey, I don't like this ballast lights. Those things are so expensive, that kind of stuff. And so when I hear someone saying, particularly, I've 30 years now, when a guy on the shop floor says something like, this probably doesn't matter much, but my radar goes up way high because those guys know. And guys like these guys know. They may not articulate it as well as maybe other guys, but they know. And so I'm always siding on the guy who has it in his gut. I think that these types of things. So anyway, all I was trying to do, John and Kevin, and for the team, is to try to visualize what I thought I heard. Okay, it doesn't mean it's right. I would put draft number 1 all over this. But I did see that if we don't hit this date, then this date starts slipping. Before you know it, people are doing other things, So that's what I wanted to say. I will also give you a bonus, though. I found out what was at least now, what is in this south wing upgrade. I don't have details of extend air conditioning. I don't have the details of it, but I at least got the major categories in the back of one of these sheets of what he anticipated in this type of thing. And it felt good to learn for me, so I appreciated the time. I'm glad I took the time, and I just wanted to take the time today for an hour and create that so you could at least see that's what he's thinking.
See, if I had seen this kind of a plan, sketchy as it may have been, if I had seen this when he was up here talking, I would have been a lot more comfortable knowing that there was something down on paper and there was some thought put into it.
I find a lot of what not the only thing I do, but a lot of what I do is help people visualize what they're trying to say. It's what they always say about a good teacher. Understand those who are not good at explaining, and explain to those not good at understanding. And you don't do it with high fives and stuff. You just kind of look out for it, try to visualize it, play it back to them. And that's why it probably took me an hour. The content doesn't take you an hour. So does that mean, Ed, that this? Well, no, not really. That kind of thing. All right. And so, and that's why I wanted to go over, because I felt there was kind of unnecessary disconnect happening, or there was some very significant thing there for which I wouldn't want to have been the one to authorize an expenditure of any amount of money. I think it was 60 grand or whatever it was for the, and the bid on that's going to come in under that. I think he said he rejected a 51,000, and he's thinking they might get something cheaper than that. But, but people were coming in, hey, see, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, so I was hoping to try to help out. So that's what I got for you.
Very good. Good stuff. Anybody else have any questions on the project schedule? Okay. There being no other business this evening, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Meisenheimer, second by Mr. Cifarelli. All those in favor? Signify